was a good knuckle pop. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Kris. I'm gonna stretch. Okay. So this is the is a yawn. I'm just really still sore. This is the third and last Mohamed requested video. The century, America's time, the beginning, seeds of change. Let's get into it.
Immigrants themselves bringing new languages and customs were making the culture of the city just that much more diverse.
The immigrant nourishment that this nation has always had, the incoming people, has been an extremely important part of our vitality, our ingenuity. It's like aerating the stream of life here.
Early in this century, 1 in 3 residents of major American cities had been born somewhere else. New York had twice as many Irish as Dublin, and Chicago had more Poles than Warsaw.
We had Polish people, we had Irish people, we had Jewish people, and we had Italian people. And they were all friendly, and we were all in the same boat. None of us had any money.
My grandparents, the only place they can get rooms, literally, was on Elizabeth Street, which is where my mother was born. The apartment was 2.5 rooms, 3 rooms, and maybe 14 people were living in it. And at night, it looked like, you know, hospital ward, I would think, with all these beds and all these people sleeping in these different beds.
There were no bedrooms, they were toilets. They were in the hallway. But my mother and father thought that this was wonderful because in the old country, the toilets were in the backyard. And the fact that in the kitchen, we had not only running water so that you didn't have to go to the well for water, but we had hot water. My mother, every week that she did the wash, she said, how wonderful we have hot water.
Steadily rising income and declining work hours meant that for the first time, even working class people could go out in search of entertainment. 5 cents bought a ticket to the newest entertainment phenomenon, moving pictures.
We were so taken with the nickel shows. 2 of us would beg to be admitted by sitting on one seat.
The earliest movies, introduced simultaneously in France and the United States in the 1890s, were simple tableaux of anything that moved, either make-believe or what was called actuality. In 1903 came the first American film that actually told a story, The Great Train Robbery, a Western filmed in New Jersey. Its huge success made it clear that fiction was what the audience wanted most.
There was comedies. And then there was The Pearls of Pauline, which was a serial that went on every Saturday afternoon. Every week she was in a situation. A lot of kids, it wasn't a movie to them, it was actuality.
Beginning in 1910, Americans were also seeing newsreels from around the world.
It's coming as a great force for mass entertainment and for mass culture. There is this sense of possibility, the sense of openness, the sense of widening the horizons. What it does is it opens the world.
How shocked do you think that those... let me turn the volume down a little bit. Those early Americans who are now seeing this, and you're seeing all the other cultures and everything like that, not just American, but let's say you're in X country and you're seeing all this stuff. Just how mind-blowing is that to you? Because at one part, you're kind of judging it. You're kind of like, oh, they live like that, whether it's good or bad. You know, man, that would just be so crazy. Because you're getting to see You're getting to see what you never would have seen before unless you went there. Oh, that would have been pretty entertaining, because you take it for granted now, you know. But that would have been entertaining.
In Havana Harbor on February the 15th, 1898, a mysterious explosion sank an American cruiser, the USS Maine. 266 officers and sailors were killed. Cuba was a Spanish colony 90 miles from Florida. Although there was no evidence of Spanish involvement, cries of revenge against Spain swept across America. But President William McKinley, who would lead America into the 20th century, was reluctant to go to war.
President McKinley is a silver-tongued orator, very popular, sweet man, but a very indecisive man. They used to say that McKinley's mind is like an unmade bed. You have to make it up for him before he can use it.
Much more eager for war and foreign adventure in general was McKinley's young Assistant Secretary of the Navy.
He's one of my favorite presidents. He's like a top 5. Just his, not necessarily, when I say presidents, I don't mean necessarily just their presidency. I mean just the whole life. But Teddy Roosevelt was just, he was just a cowboy.
Theodore Roosevelt.
Theodore Roosevelt was a great believer in outdoorism, a great believer in activity. He was vigorous, you know. You could imagine him sort of taking cold showers all the time.
He was big on activity when he was a kid because he suffered from asthma. He had it in his adult life too. And he figured that to conquer that, being a sickly kid and everything like that, he would conquer it by getting out, running out in the woods, climbing trees, jumping over logs, like getting himself, I don't think he really knew it at the time, but becoming better cardiovascular strength, health, I should say. Just really kind of changed his way of life, and that seemed to really help him. Little tangent here. So I don't have anything near me. Okay, how about this? I don't know who's going to know the story, but I think Teddy Roosevelt was the president at the time. He, avid hunter. He went into the Northwest Territory, which was like Montana, Wyoming area, and he went on a hunt. And he had a person from the newspaper with him. And he had a bunch of people. He had scouts with him and all kinds of stuff. Well, they were on this trip, and the hunting, it was not going well. Not going good at all. And he wasn't really having a good time. But he liked being out there. So one morning while he was still asleep, the scouts and the guides went out in advance to find some game, some animals for him to kill, to shoot at least. They came across a baby black bear, I believe. I keep forgetting what to call them, scouts. Anyways, they captured this baby bear, and they tied it to a tree. They came back to camp, and he was cooking breakfast. So they're like, they did not cough, but they said, hey, we found some animals, some game. Come on, we gotta go. We gotta catch him now. So he put everything aside, jumped on his horse. I think the newspaper guy, he jumped on a horse. I could be wrong about that, but so anyways, he goes out, he follows the guys, and they're like, oh yeah, you know, the game is right over this hill. So he goes over this area and he comes upon this bear that's tied to the tree, baby bear. And he refuses to shoot it. They're like, there it is. And he's like, well, this isn't hunting. This isn't sport. This is murder. And he refused to do it. And he told him, untie that black bear. This is not what we're doing. Heads back to camp to finish cooking his breakfast and then to eat it. And I don't know if the newspaper guy was on the trip with him, or if the newspaper guy then, when he came into camp, the guy then, had asked him what had happened, and he told him. They tied up this bear. He wasn't going to do that. So this guy writes the story, sends it off to somebody who then telegraphs it to the New York newspaper, and they put it out. Well, where he was maybe Wyoming, the state, Montana state area, around that area. Well, a local toy supplier, toy shop, he thought, what an idea. So he took this cloth, made it into a bear, and put stuffing inside of it, and pronounced it Teddy's Bear. And that was the bear that the nation now symbolized that he did not kill. Teddy's Bear became a hit. Kids started buying them. Parents were buying them for their kids and stuff like that. And it gradually changed to Teddy Bear. So any stuffed animal that you know of, it's called a teddy bear for that reason. It's just carried on. So whenever you see a stuffed animal, little teddy bear, it came about because of Teddy Roosevelt. I think I've told this before on different videos, but just throwing it out there again.
And he carried all this in his character into his politics. He was a great believer in American power, in American imperialism, a great believer in war. War is one of the highest forms of human endeavor, he wrote.
With Roosevelt and others lobbying intensely for it, Congress declared war on Spain in April of 1898. Roosevelt left his job in Washington to join the campaign in Cuba.
Theodore Roosevelt organizes his old cowboy buddies from the West into the Rough Riders and goes to Brooks Brothers and gets a uniform made and gets out a big saber and goes down there and storms San Juan Hill.
It took the United States less than 3 months to defeat Spain in what one American official called a splendid little war.
To be fair, at the time, Spain was widely considered a declining empire, and the U.S. was considered an empire on the rise. I'm not saying it wasn't a fair fight, but it wasn't really a fight that I think Spain really wanted to participate in. But then again, maybe they thought the U.S. wasn't as powerful as they were, and they might have overestimated their own power in that time. Either way, it didn't go well for Spain at all.
The spoils of war for the United States were the Spanish colonies of Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. The United States was now an empire. At the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York in September 1901, President McKinley was killed by an assassin with no particular cause beyond his own dissatisfaction. Theodore Roosevelt, by then Vice President, became America's leader.
He's really the first president.
And for people who don't know, he got his start working his way up. He became known, he worked for the police in New York. Was he the police chief? I don't remember, but he was a complete pain in the butt for his party, the Republican Party. And he wanted to get up running in politics and stuff like that. And he did not, party politics wasn't necessarily his thing. He was associated with the party, But that doesn't mean that he went full board for that party. He was really fair on things. And his party, in order to kill his political career, not him, but the political career, because people knew the name Teddy Roosevelt, they loved him. They thought that he was a man of the people. He was one of them. You know, they really associated with him, much like a politician who you feel like, yeah, I could totally see him eating at this restaurant. I could see him doing this, doing that, and you feel like you could bond with that person because they don't feel like a politician. They feel like a person. And that's what people loved about him. So his party convinced the McKinley group. I don't remember what happened to McKinley's other vice president. I don't remember if he passed away or if he... I don't remember. I'm just speculating. But they needed a new vice president. They convinced him, McKinley's team, to take on Roosevelt, knowing that the vice president didn't really do anything. And so he's out of sight, out of mind. That's going to tank his political career. Maybe he'll get back in line with everyone. Well, what happens? He gets voted in as the vice president, and like a month or two later, or no, maybe it was several months later, McKinley gets assassinated, and Teddy Roosevelt's the president. Not exactly what his party in New York and all those people, what they ever anticipated. So that backfired tremendously. And just think about how odd it is to say, we're going to kill his presidential career by elevating him to the second leading political figure in this nation. He is literally an assassin's bullet in McKinley's case. He's an assassin's bullet away from ascending to the number one. Almost descending. Ascending to the number one position. And yet to them, that was a better alternative than to allow him to continue with what he was doing as like a police chief or whatever that was. How stupid we are back then. But then again, I mean, think of how many vice presidents, if you're an American, think of how many vice presidents you know of under, well, presidents that didn't get assassinated. I know who James K. Polk is, 11th president. I don't know his vice president. So, you know, it is what it is.
Who sees the United States as a global power. America's century begins really with Roosevelt.
Theodore Roosevelt was an imperialist. He actually gloried in the term, and he wanted the United States to be a real empire, exercising great power in the same ways that the great European empires did.
Roosevelt's design included linking the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans by building a canal through the Isthmus of Panama in northern Colombia. Such a canal would greatly facilitate shipping and ensure America's strategic hold on the region. But when the Colombians refused to cooperate, Roosevelt encouraged the Panamanians to revolt against their Colombian rulers.
Within a couple of days, we recognized the new independent Republic of Panama, and within another few days, we had concluded a treaty with them. Roosevelt said, when other people dithered and when other people debated, I acted. I took action.
Construction of the era's engineering wonder began in 1904. Alfred Bingham visited the canal site as a child.
I can remember riding along in this car on the bottom of the canal. A lot of big machinery and a lot of trains going up and down, taking the diggings out. And there were marvelous big structures that were to be the locks.
The building of the canal itself was the greatest engineering feat that had ever been done up to that time. And it's all of the great power and technology and energy of this age harnessed there. There's a wonderful photo of Theodore Roosevelt at the controls of one of these gigantic steam shovels that they used to dig out the ditch. The Panama Canal is a wonderful expression not only of him, but in many ways of America of that time.
In mid-August of 1914, Americans celebrated the opening of the Panama Canal, a triumph of both technology and man's will over nature. An engineering feat as impressive as the pyramids, the canal would also become the symbol of America's entrance into the international arena, at a time when the world was becoming more dangerous. That same week, the great powers of Europe were headed for a violent encounter that none of them could even imagine, promoted by German ambition. Early in this century, Germany had emerged as the industrial power in Europe, rivaling Britain and already mightier than France, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and Russia. But as Europe's youngest empire, Germany wielded little political.
Germany is really a great power and a leader of nations, and wanted at least to be equal to others, not be considered less important than other powers like England.
Under Kaiser Wilhelm, Germany was training the best land army in the world, 5 million men, and had begun building a powerful navy.
To build that navy required nerve, because it was a direct challenge to Britain. And that conflict between Britain and Germany is at the heart of international affairs before 1914.
Britain responded by launching the most powerful warship on Earth, the Dreadnought.
It was a revolution in naval warfare. It was an all-big gun ship, big 12-inch guns. Also, the dreadnoughts had the latest technological equipment on them, had electrical equipment, for example. Once the British had a dreadnought, the Germans had to have a dreadnought, etc., etc.
The tensions fed by an arms race and rivalry among the major European powers finally came to a head in June of 1914, when Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, was assassinated by a Serbian nationalist in Sarajevo.
There was no reason why the assassination of Franz Ferdinand would signal the collision of fundamental interests. It was a matter of choice, and that choice was made in Vienna and in Berlin to make it more than an assassination.
In late July, with Germany's support, the Austro-Hungarian Empire declared war on Serbia. And within days, all the great powers of Europe, bound by their various alliances, were at war with each other.
I was at a camp, a boys' camp in New Hampshire in 1914 when war was declared. And it was a shock to a very peaceful world. But nobody took it too seriously.
Didn't mean to cut him off. You know, World War I, basically one declares war on the other, and because there's treaties, everyone else starts jumping in. George Washington made a treaty with France, the first president. And France and England went to war, and he refused to go along with that treaty because he didn't want to be dragged into a European war, and that's what he viewed it as. One of the things that he was big against was any kind of treaty with a foreign nation that would bring you into conflict if they got into conflict. Now, the nation was not nearly as strong as it was then as it is today. So he was viewing it as, you know, we can't. I often wonder what he would think about, you know, things like NATO and all that, where we have these treaties where, you know, we're going to war if that's what it is. You know, the coalitions and everything. I think his stance might be different because of the power of the country, but I think his overall theme would be, no, stay out of it. You know, we got to focus on here. So it's just, you know, we've changed a lot, clearly.
War was bad, of course, but it was also something that would be temporary and would not have a far-reaching effect.
But this war would be more catastrophic than any which had gone before. One in which technology, the engine of progress, would be used in the slaughter of millions. A war that would sow greater hatred and result in far greater consequences than anyone could imagine in that summer of 1914. What was optimistically called the war to end all wars would draw America into an increasingly complex and dangerous world. That's on the next episode of The Century, America's Time.
I apologize because there's more episodes to this. This was, when I clicked the link for you, Mohamed, this was the video that came up. So I don't know if this was the video you were talking about or if it was this whole series. I don't know, and I apologize. Let me know, and I'll check out some of the others. But that's the end of the video. There may or may not be a thanks button. I have no idea anymore. You can donate to the channel if you like. If not, don't worry about it. If you do, thank you, much appreciated. You can request something. You can also donate and not request anything. That's, you know, it's not illegal. If you're watching more of these videos, then just subscribe. Don't be one of those people. Give a thumbs up. People want to give a thumbs down. We are having a competition. We're going to round a bunch of people up, and the competition is who's going to tongue kiss a piranha. So if you give a thumbs down, you're instantly going to be put on that list, and it's kind of like a who's going to win kind of thing. My money's on the piranha, especially after we throw blood in your mouth. That's going to stink. So until the next time, I gotta bump this out of the way because it's the only way I can end it. Until next time, have a good day, have a good night.